Hello my friends, today I have prepared another modern topic and it's a rather rare model. I will be building LARS 2 from Hobby Boss. But first, let's take a look at what's inside. The standard quality of plastic that Hobby Boss uses in its products, it's not surprising and guarantees sufficient quality. The colored plate with the camo schemes is also a traditional element of this manufacturer's models. I will do exactly this painting because there are no other options. The tires are quite good, but I won't use them in this model anyway. The Decals set is not too large, we can choose the number on the license plate from 3 different ones. Additionally, there are also window masks which will undoubtedly be very useful. There are also 3 plates with photo-etched elements. And as I mentioned, the rubber tires will be replaced with resin ones from the set produced by Def Model. The most surprising thing about this set is its price. In stores it costs between 70 and 80 euros, which in my opinion is quite a lot for a truck model. I will divide the whole construction into parts: cabin, chassis and missile system. The instructions suggest starting with the chassis and that is what I will do. But then there is a cabin which I will build last. First I will build the platform and launcher. The very first thing I did was to label the frames with parts in a very simple but clear way. It saves time searching for parts and as we all know, time is money. Putting together plastic parts wasn't exactly a thrilling time, just gluing individual elements. That's why I will show you the superb wheels from Def Model which replace the rubber tires and plastic rims. A great set that definitely improves the quality of the model. It's not cheap, but in my opinion it's worth every cent spent. Designed exactly for this model, it doesn't require any modifications, only cutting off the casting blocks. The launcher set and platform will remain unglued to the chassis because it will definitely make painting easier. For now the vehicle will be presented in a transport version with the launcher folded. I decided to only build an unfolded platform even though it's usually folded in photos, but in this arrangement it looks more interesting in my opinion. As you saw in the beginning, the producer added a set of window masks to the set, which must be considered a very good move because they will clearly be useful in this model. For me they have a bit too strong glue which you have to be careful about, and they are a bit too large, but it's not a big problem. I glued the windows in the model with a special glue for transparent parts. It's quite thick and a small amount is enough to hold the glass in the right place. I painted the entire interior with dark green paint, next painted the dashboard details, seats and did some weathering with pigments. I generally don't do interiors because presenting them is pointless in models of this scale, especially when we only use parts from the set and don't enrich this space with additional elements. That's why I treated this fragment with minimal effort, knowing that even though such large windows you won't see much after assembling the whole thing. Of course you can put more effort into detailing the interior by adding, for example, seat belts and other elements that are clearly missing here, but that's not my cup of tea. The cabin was the last component of the entire model, so now I could start painting. To start with, the entire chassis frame together with the suspension elements were covered with black paint. Before I started painting the camo, I glued the doors to the cabin, thus completely closing access to the interior. There are pros and cons of such a step, so always think whether everything is definitely done and whether you will not regret that the doors are already permanently in their place. As a reminder, the entire camo painting is in the previous episode on the channel. For the lazy ones, the link is in the description of this video. So here I won't show this stage, but only the final effect. In my opinion, the painting turned out exactly as it should have. I replaced the rubber wheels from the set with a resin set from Death Model, which always includes masks for painting tires or rims. I planned to paint the tires with them, but the masks didn't quite do their job. I don't know, maybe I did something wrong, but I don't think they fully covered the rims, so I decided to paint the tires by hand. To color the exhaust system elements, I used rusty pigment jockey shades. Using the wet on wet method, I applied some colors to the muffler to change its shade. As you probably know, I'm not a big fan of chipping, but on this model I decided to paint a certain amount in places where it could have quite a few. First of all, I wanted to diversify the model a bit because it's not a tank or other tracked vehicle, so some limitations in terms of weathering had to be compensated for with other effects. I painted the light scratches and then filled them with dark brown using chip and nick paint. I used a sponge and a brush, and at the end I did some speckling by adding micro dots. That's quite enough. The old method proven on many models is a transparent satin or glossy varnish under any stickers that we apply to the surface. I used satin varnish for this. I have very little to apply to the model, only crosses on the sides of the rocket launcher and license plates and the round symbol on the front. Unfortunately, the producer forgot about the markings on the small fire extinguisher boxes and could also have prepared markings on the fenders, tactical symbols and some unit emblems. There are enough photos on the internet so that you don't have to worry about the sources. I reinforced all the stickers with a suitable liquid that strengthens their adhesion to the surface. After it dried, I started doing a wash with dark brown paint. With good dilution it wasn't a problem. I used the excess wash on vertical surfaces as usual to make streaks. If you watch my videos, you know that I do this very often because using one product I can make two effects almost at the same time. It's really worth it because the streaks created in this way are subtle but at the same time quite visible. The rust effect on the rocket launcher outlets looks pretty good. I used the same rusty pigments jockey as for the exhaust system. I saw this color scheme in a book from Tankograd about the Mars and LARS systems. It looks great here, especially since it adds color to the dark camo. I painted the inside of the launcher with a metallic shade also from the Pigment Jockey series. Now I have to admit that I could have left the whole element of the side unglued and then it would have been easier to paint it. Having it glued in place, it wasn't the most convenient to work on it, but somehow I managed to weather it and add a bit of metallic pencil rubbing. They may be a bit exaggerated, but that was my idea for their finish. Working on the pigment jockey, I painted the tread of the wheels and the sides. This will be the base for applying the pigments. After drying with the accelerator, I started applying the pigment to the tread and rim area, trying to create a good looking wheel, dusty but with the tire core visible. After that I rubbed the tread, which contacts the ground, with the original rubber color to show that the dust is rubbed off after riding on dry asphalt. I didn't put the pigment jockey on the shelf because I still needed to finish the entire bottom of the vehicle. I covered the lower part with the right amount so that it would look like off-road riding and completely dusty all suspension elements. I started applying the pigment, which is fixed with sand and ballast freeze, and drying with an accelerator. In the set with wheels, each wheel is in a pair and they need to be grouped appropriately so that the arrangement of the inscriptions on the tire is not repeated on one side. This looks more natural than identically placed wheels next to each other. It's good if you also have different dirt on them, which you need to think about in advance, or add some interesting effect that won't disturb the overall look and won't be too different from the others. After putting the wheels on, I added some more pigment jockey to the sides of the vehicle. I left the wipers almost until the end because I decided to use their size to make a suitable mark on the windshield. I drew the appropriate shape on masking tape, which I cut out with a knife and stuck on. I painted the wipers before I glued them to the right place. I applied pigment to the windows and after removing the masking tape I glued the wipers. Now I started applying pigment to the rest of the model to dust it properly and at the same time build a good looking contrast. Due to the quite light color of the pigment and quite dark camo, it's very visible. It's worth remembering that some dirt on vehicles is quite irregular and appears in unexpected places. Having couple seconds before the end of this video, I would like to mention my wonderful patrons who support my activity. Massive thanks, guys! The people who helped me the most are Bulldog09, Christopher Obarski, Dan Dubois, Dan Mike Shack, Hans Zapp, Karsten Keddy and Steve Ankin. But the people listed just now are also my great patrons. Please don't forget that you can be one of them. And I realize it's not easy these days, but if you have a few bucks you could drop in my cup, that would be great. Thanks! Oh, and one more thing. Remember that if you join for free you probably won't be able to view my work. Better try the 7 days free trial, which will give you many more possibilities. I also painted traces of spilled fuel using oil paint. You can add spots painted with this paint, but you have to be careful because in the case of vehicles like this one it can be a bit off. It's worth remembering that these were vehicles maintained in quite good condition and it's not worth using the same methods and effects on them as we use on tanks, for example. It's simply that different applications and different conditions of use play a very important role here when it comes to weathering. That is why I applied really little splashed mud. It's there, but you have to look closely to catch the places where it appeared. So that's the end and actually all I wanted to say and show today. Thanks for watching. I hope this unique track piqued your interest and you enjoyed this episode. If you had a good time watching it, please click like, write a comment even to say hello and subscribe the channel for more videos with my projects. As I said before, you can also consider joining to my Patreon group because your support is highly appreciated and helps me do what I do here at coldemonspl. Thanks to this I will try to give you some interesting content to keep you informed and entertained. And a short note for collectors. All my models are for sale. Get in touch with me and we will discuss what you need. This one is also for sale. In the next video I'm going to present some World War II classic vehicle building process. So there is no other option but to stay tuned. That's all for today. See you next time. Cheers!